No. Sometimes.
We want to welcome you to our commission meeting tonight, and if you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for being with us tonight. Our first item of business is presentation of the Carbon County Employee of the Month. Rose, we'll turn some time to you.
Let's see, I'm going to ask the sheriff to come up with me. Our Employee of the Month this month is Frank Orey. And before I turn the time over to the sheriff, I'm going to ask Frank to come up here. This young man wears so many different hats, does so much for not just our county, but the community. I can't begin to thank him enough for all that he does. He always smiles, and I know there are times that he has to be overly stressed, but you never know that. He never ever lets anyone in the public know that. He always smiles. He'll do whatever you ask him, and I always say, Frank, you need to just say no. It's okay to say no. But, I personally want to thank him because I've had the pleasure of getting to know him and working with him, not only as a department head, as an employee. He was an employee when I first came on, but with the Ballard fundraiser, and he is just an amazing man, and I can't thank him enough for all that he does. So I will turn the time over to you.
So you're going to think that Rose and I have talked before this, and we really have not. So the thing that I admire most about Frank is his can-do attitude and his level of customer service that he provides for the citizens of our county. I had the pleasure of working with Frank this summer on some of the community events that he puts together, and it's amazing what's going on behind the scenes. And yet nobody knows. Everything goes off without a hitch. Frank's happy. The community's happy, and he just charges on, and what a great employee for the county. I can't say enough about Frank. He's a good man. Also, he's a pretty good friend of mine, so I'm a little bit biased. But I just want to say thanks to Frank.
Thank you, Frank. We'd love to hear from you, Frank.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I hate this kind of stuff. I'd like to just be behind the scenes and take care of the things, but I want to thank the commission for allowing us the opportunity to do the things that we're able to do. Because of your support, we have the ability to have one of the most diverse recreation programs, probably not only in the state, but probably the nation. The things that we do compared to other departments is pretty cool. We do everything from shooting sports to t-ball, and some nights it's everything in between. We cook hot dogs, we just whatever it takes to get the job done. And we're actually, this is not the subject of the Employee of the Month, but Ron Young and I are working on a proposal to get a national 22 rifle shoot finals here at the North Spring Shooting Range and at the fairgrounds in May. So we're looking at anywhere from, they said they wanted a first-class range and a banquet facility that could seat 1,000, and that kind of fits our bill. So we're working on that, and I don't know, I love what I do, so thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next item, Commissioners, is the approval of the minutes. We have September 6th minutes in front of us tonight. Do you have any changes or comments?
Commissioners, unless you say otherwise, I didn't have any changes I noticed through my first read-through. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
There was a couple grammatical things and I was going to come down to your office. I just didn't make it. Seth consumed all my time. In number 5, discussion number 5, second paragraph, second to the last line there, it says, because of the narrowness of the road and the lack of turnaround, should it be a turnaround or I don't know. It just, when I read through it, it didn't read right.
Where are you looking?
Right here on 5.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know. Lack of a turnaround. And then on the last page, item number 14, Commissioner Hope is Hopes. And then in 16, it says Commissioner Hope said, and then down on the second line there it says, and needs, is it need letters of support or needs letters of support for the community? Grammatically, I don't know.
So if it's a plural noun in the subject of the sentence, then it's just need,
So it's
right?
right then? So need letters of support?
I don't have it in front of me. What does the sentence say at the beginning?
It says, who is going after funding and need letters of support?
So it's referring to the Price River Watershed Committee, who is.
So I think it's just needs then.
So
who needs?
It needs letters of support.
Yeah.
So it needs to put an S on the end of that. That's all I have. Those 3 changes.
Well, move to approve with those 3 changes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item is to convene as the Carbon County Municipal Building Authority. We would need a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
We'll turn the time over to Commissioner Hopes.
We have a public hearing to receive public comment on the county application to Permanent Community Impact Fund Board for the purchase of 2 fire trucks. Commissioner Potter, do you want to explain this?
You bet. First of the year when we met on our projects that we would look at for CIB funding this year, as all the cities in the county, we made a list of priorities. And one of those priorities was fire trucks. I believe the first one was with Wellington and some of their water and sewer issues, which are progressing. But also the second one was for the purchase of 2 fire trucks to benefit Wellington and Helpers fire departments replace some equipment that needed to be done. It's that time of the year where we need to make this application so that we can be in the next trimester and be heard by the Community Impact Board. And we don't know what month that would be, but part of this process is we need to have that public hearing and be able to submit our minutes to them. We are asking for, in the application, $100,000 in local cash to be put in, and a $1 million grant that would cover the 2 fire trucks. They're each just over $500,000 apiece, and their associated equipment. And then also, as part of that, even though we ask for a grant, it has to be, made notice in the public that sometimes with the Community Impact Board, that board will make a second suggestion where they may offer part of that as loan. And so with those loans, they can either be 0% or they can be at an interest rate as determined and suggested by the board. So our hearing tonight is to really discuss the application for the 2 fire trucks, but being known that as the application is submitted, it is for a $1 million grant. And that's what we would be, submitting the documentation and going before the board when that's assigned to do that. And that kind of summarizes what that is, unless there's anything Christian would like to add to that.
No, that's great.
It's a normal process. Having sat on that board for a number of years, this is the mechanism whereby we can go after grant funding for mineral producing counties.
Is there any other discussion that needs to happen before we have the public hearing?
I would just go and say that it's not every county that is supportive and acts as a sponsoring entity for a lot of the cities and for a lot of the benefit of its county. In speaking to some of the other counties, their special service districts, their cities, their other entities have to do all of this work themselves. And so I'd just like the citizens of Carbon County to realize that we do step up to the plate and try to make as big of a difference for them as we can by providing the organization and the legal counsel and the applications for this type of process.
And it just goes to show our support for our local fire departments, where they do cover the unincorporated county for us. They do provide a great service in all those areas that are of need. They all respond, and we appreciate that very much.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we'll open this public hearing at 4:40. Anybody that would like to speak to this, please come to the mic, state your name for the record, and we'll go from there.
My name is Matt Perea. I'm the fire chief for Wellington City. I mostly just want to thank the commission for assisting us with this endeavor. Just to drive home the point to the community at large, I've had 4 of my 6 apparatus in the shop already this year.
Wow.
I've already eaten through more than half of my repair budget, and it's the first quarter that my fiscal year. So it is important. I know helpers having the same struggle with their rescue truck. So myself, my assistant chief, we really do appreciate it, and there's no other way we could get this without you guys. So thank you.
Matt, maybe while you're here, just describe what your truck would be, the one that Wellington would be.
So it's just a basic pumper fire engine. It's got 1,000 gallons it's got a 1,000-gallon water tank on it. I think we went with a 1,250 gallon per minute pump. It's pretty basic, but it's going to replace the truck we have, which the truck we have we got as a refurb. It had been in an accident, it had rolled, and so we got it at a pretty good price. But with that comes with all the electrical and mechanical problems that come with a refurb. We've had nothing but issues with it the whole time we've had it. So the truck we're getting will replace that mainline engine. This engine will move to the back because our second line engine has as many or more problems than our mainline engine. So, but it's about a $350,000 engine, plus we need equipment, generator, and everything for it. So by the time all said and done, it's close to $500,000, which is pretty typical for a fire truck anywhere these days. So not a lot of frills with it, but it'll get the job done, and we won't be breaking down and losing a fire truck every time we go out on a fire anymore.
So do you have any idea what you'll do with your second line truck now that will then
So the second line truck now will probably end up a reserve engine, just because of how much we're plagued by problems with our engines. I mean, 79, we have the engine that's from 1979. We have like an 83. Our newest engine is a 2002, 15 years old. 15 years on a fire engine is like 100 years on any other vehicle. They get used hard, so when they are used. So it'll end up, that will end up a reserve engine for when we have any other issues. So
Thank you, Matt.
okay, thank you guys.
Mayor Joan Powell, I just wanted
Mayor.
to say thank you for your support for our fire departments. We really needed it, and we appreciate the efforts that you've gone through with our fire contracts, and I appreciate the job that these 2 men do for our fire department. They keep us up to date as they can, and I know budgets are tight everywhere, and ours is no different, and I just want you to know that we appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mayor.
Justin Needles. I've spent 14 years fighting fires with both Helper and Wellington. It's been on multiple incidents with them where either trucks broke down or they've had problems with trucks. I just want to say thank you, commissioners, for being willing to stand up and do this for these departments. It's much needed, and it will be a huge benefit for all of the county. Thank you.
Justin, I don't necessarily see anybody from the Helper Fire Department, but they're asking for a rescue truck. So we've got a pumper truck and a rescue truck, just for the record.
Yep, so the rescue truck that they use, it's about the same size as the frontline pumper truck that Wellington's asking for. The only difference is it's set up as a rescue truck. It would be nice to see that truck with some water on it versus no water the way it's set up right now, but it responds to wrecks up the canyon, not just for Carbon County, Utah County, and Wasatch County, I believe it is as well, is who they cover for. So it goes into multiple different counties besides just ours and Helper. So that is their frontline truck that goes out on all crashes on Highway 6. So it's nice to have them be able to respond with a truck that's reliable and will get to the scene and not get a breakdown partway there.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this? If not, we'll close this public hearing at 4:46.
And then, Lori, if we could ask that particular section of the minutes or all the minutes from our meeting, if we can get those to Rita so we can submit those with our CIB application.
And then there's no formal approvals that need to be made in this. I'll take a motion to reconvene as the Carbon County Board of Commissioners.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item is a review and possible approval of the pre-disaster mitigation grant application for, for two new generators at the emergency response facilities in Carbon County. Justin?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the pre-disaster mitigation grant is a 75% federal share, 25% local share grant. It is due by October 14th. We are looking for approval to apply for 2 new generators. Those 2 new generators, one will be replacing the generator that's at the ambulance garage / EOC. That generator there is not sufficient to run that building when we have a long-term power outage. The generator that is there would then go to the intake of the sheriff's office. The generator that there is also insufficient for my building. The generator that it's at my building would then go out to search and rescue. Search and rescue currently does not have a generator at their facility. So in the event of a power outage, there's no way to get equipment out of that building. The second new generator would go to Price Fire Department. The generator that is there is insufficient for their building. Anytime the power goes out, the generator kicks off. It's overloaded with just the normal everyday things that run in that building. So the match total would be, so working with Price Fire Department, go back one step, the generator that is then there, Wellington City does not have a generator at their facility. I've not been able to get commitment or anything from them, but the hope would be the generator at Price Fire would go to Wellington Fire Department to be able to help them out. So talking with Paul Bedont, the new generator at their facility would cost $13,550. They have agreed to pay their 25% of the match, which would be $3,387. So the other new generators and placement and everything else for the county, the total federal share amount would be $70,450. And our 25% match would be $24,613. So all in all, we are asking for $112,000 for the whole grant, and that would be both federal and local share.
Does this include installation of all these generators, or is that just purchase of the generators?
That's purchase, installation, new pads at my building and at Search and Rescue, so that does include those costs. As for the match, I have talked with Dawn Morelli. As long as budgets, are similar to what we were looking at this year, both of them, we figured we could figure out in the 2 budgets of ours to come up with that in kind. So Dawn said he'd figure some places to come out as long as fuel doesn't get crazy, and in my budget, I think I could find some room to cover the rest of the portion. And it is a national grant. It's a federal national grant, so we are competing nationwide for this grant, and it would be announced in February if we got the grant or not, if we're able to apply. Any other questions for me?
I don't have any, Commissioners.
I'll just appreciate you finding the potential funding options so that we can apply.
Yeah, as we talk about more and more need for grant in the county, that is a good one. We'll take a motion then, Commissioners.
I'll make the motion to approve the application.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank
And
you,
then that
Justin.
assurance letter, we just need that. It is due October 14th, so if we could get that first thing tomorrow morning, that'd be awesome.
And Rita has a,
Yeah, I
The
think,
orig- the
I know
original
Seth had
for
a
that.
copy, or I have a copy here if we need one, but thank you.
thank you. Our next item is consideration and possible approval of a general services contract with Rocky Mountain Power for electrical service at the fairgrounds, soccer fields, restrooms.
Commissioners, this is to pull the power from the current power box and take it over to the restrooms. All of the underground work has already been done. It's just a matter of Rocky Mountain Power coming in and pulling the power through the lines. In order for them to do that, they have to have a right-of-way through the property to be able to maintain the lines. Christian has worked through the language. You have anything on that, Christian?
No, I just note there's a cost of, looks like $16,000 approximately to us. There's a minimum billing rate we have to pay, but otherwise it's pretty standard language for hooking up power.
Just as a note, Commissioners, with that price tag, it did come in under our budget, so this should actually be a savings to us at the $16,000 to have them pull that line.
Any other discussion or questions?
No.
Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. When will they do that work? Do you know, Commissioner? Or?
Within, I think it was like 8 weeks or 16 weeks. They don't, nobody
No.
tells them when to do the work.
They do it when they're ready?
They do it when they're ready.
Perfect.
So now we have an agreement. They could come tomorrow, or it could be significantly later.
Okay. Well, we'll look forward to it being done. Next item is consideration and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding with Prywide for use of the Farnham Rock Pit for the Wellington Prywide EWP project. Christian?
And Commissioners, this is this agreement has been on the agenda before. It's now been signed by Prywide. It basically says that Prywide allows the county and the contractors on this project to gather gravel and other rock material from that pit for lining the, I think it's for the banks of the Price River out there in Wellington at no charge to us or anybody. And we're simply agreeing that any rock that's pulled out, we're the sponsoring agency. We're not really doing any work, but the contractors on this job are just going to use the rock that's pulled out of there for this particular project for protection along the Price River banks. And it's been signed by the opposing party. There's no money, no change of hands of money in this, so I think it's really a formality on this one.
I think it should be noted that the rock that's being pulled out of this pit will go towards the match of the EWP
Yes.
funds that we'll be receiving from the federal government. So by allowing us to go in and use the blasting and using the rock that's in the Farnham pit as riprap on to armor the banks will be the match for both Wellington on their project and also for Prywide on their project.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Prywide for use of Farnham Rock Pit for the Wellington Prywide EWP project.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our next item is a discussion and possible approval of a donation for Balanced Resources. Commissioners, and just one thing that I'd like to add for this is that we did receive their application. We can talk a little bit about who they are, but there is no funding requirement to make application to Balanced Resources. So if there's any other comment or discussion about this particular group, we should probably have that now before we take a motion on whether to make application or not. Let me just read then from their initial applications. Balanced Resources is a registered Utah nonprofit corporation and IRS-approved 501c3 public charitable organization. Our mission is to educate in the public and advocate in the courts and agencies for balancing public lands and natural resource management. And their office is in Salt Lake. And the reason this is coming before us is that it's an opportunity to work hand in hand. We've just gone through our resource management plan. We've made changes as far as our, with Rex Sacco retiring in our public lands. And this is an organization that could benefit us with resources if we chose to be part of them or they accepted our application, and provide us with some good information going forward. So
I would just add that as a county, public lands affect us, and the decisions that are made on public lands nationally or at the state level have a large and sometimes dire effect on us locally. And so we need to align ourselves with the firm and those attorneys that focus on this every day, that have a passion about what is in our best interest as far as the locals, as far as us here in Carbon County. And I feel that this firm is well aligned to do that, and would give them my motion to approve.
have a motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor then? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next item is a consideration and possible approval of predator control, of the predator control contract with the state of Utah. Christian, have you had a chance to review that as always?
Yes, this is a contract that we receive annually.
Does it differ than it?
Do you have any concerns?
anything?
It looks the same to me.
There is some differences in this one. If we don't allocate our money before, what was it, November? I read it right there on the first page.
I think it's January. Oh, yeah.
They're asking
November
all funds to be
1st,
sent by November
no later
1st.
than November 1st, and allocate our money to it, we could lose our funding for this. It's, if you remember, it's a $7,000 match. We pay $7,000, or do we pay all 14?
We pay 14, and then
they pay us back
send
$7. So if we want to continue being participants in this, we do need action before November 1st. Otherwise, at January 1, they will then open it up to any other counties that want to use that funding and distribute it. There have been counties that have not participated, and the money sits idle. And so they want to make sure all the money is getting spent in this predator control. That's the only difference that I saw between this year and past years.
And this is a USDA-sponsored program through the Division of Wildlife and Resources. So it does come up on an annual basis, Commissioners. Seth, is there any challenge in meeting the deadlines as far as that goes?
No, we shouldn't have any challenge with that. The only other thing that we may want to, I think it still lists the contact person for the county as being Sandy Lehman.
Yeah, I did notice that too.
And we'd want to change that to be the current commission secretary.
Yes.
But everything else I think will be fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the, is this a the contract with the state of Utah for predator control. And part of my motion will be changing from Sandra Lehman to Rita Vigor as the contact point.
Have a motion?
And a second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Our next item is consideration and possible adoption of a motion to begin the vacating of Oliver Lane as a public right-of-way. Christian, we'll turn the time to you.
Commissioners, as you know, this is not the first time you've looked at this item on your agenda. A couple of meetings ago, I made a suggestion to you that you take no action on Oliver Lane for a couple of reasons. As you recall, some of the property owners along Oliver Lane have asked the county to resume maintenance of that road and to undertake to do snow plowing and road improvement on that road. You've heard me state before that the road department has indicated how extremely difficult it is to maintain the road. The fences are extremely tight, making it hard to plow or grade the road without damaging fences. There's nowhere for trucks to turn around. They have to back out, back up, back in, back out, back in order to turn around at the end of the lane. It's very difficult and dangerous. They don't like, that's not how our snowplow operators like to work. So it's really just about, not quite, but just about impossible to maintain that road. I recommended to you that even though there's some indicia that it is a county road, that you not take any formal action to vacate the road, because of the fact that when a road vacationing takes place, by operation of law, that road that is vacated is given legally title to the adjoining landowners up to the center line. And the reason I recommended you not do that in this case is that there's an underlying, the road is not owned by the county outright. It's the county's interest, if there is one, is that it's become a public road by use, and there are actual owners of the underlying property. And so if you were to create that ownership issue, if you were to vacate it, it creates another layer of an ownership issue. It creates a presumption that the adjoining landowners own that property now. Whereas if we simply let it be and simply did minimal maintenance on it, just enough to make it, well, I don't know that we'd have to maintain it at all, other than very minimal Class B road standards. So that was my recommendation, is that we not seek further funding for it from the state of Utah, that we simply let it rest and not add to any conflict or confusion over who actually owns the road. This last week I was approached by UDOT, who's conducted an audit of that road, and UDOT directors up in Salt Lake have said, "County, we want you to either reapply to establish this road as a Class B road for which you receive money and maintain the road regularly, or we want you to formally vacate it." Now, I don't believe they have the legal authority to force us to do one or the other, but they have asked and suggested that they do have the authority to force us to, and they want us to either declare it as a public road and maintain it and receive funding for it, or to vacate it, one way or the other. In looking at the best options, to me it seems the best option would be to vacate it, given the extreme difficulty in continuing to maintain it. And although vacationing the road will create a presumption for some of the landowners that now the adjoining landowners own part of the road to the center line, that presumption is simply a legal one, and it can be sorted out in court if necessary. It does not necessarily mean that the county does or doesn't own that road. A court would still have to decide that, but it does create that presumption that the county did own it. So there's a chance that some of these landowners may wish to go to court and undertake a quiet title action and determine the validity of the county's ownership, if there was ownership or if there wasn't. But on the other hand, I don't see that subjects the county to any kind of liability. So if the county were brought into court on it, it would simply be a matter of determining whether the county owned the road before they brought this action. Whenever we do a vacationing of a road, it requires public notice. There has to be a public hearing. Extensive public notice is given. Public notice is posted in 3 different places. It's published for 4 weeks in a newspaper, and then you have to determine whether or not anyone would be harmed by the vacationing of this road. There are at least 5 properties along this road. One of those properties claims ownership of the road, at least through their own property, but as to the other 4 properties, we've done a title search and shown that there is an easement, an express written easement recorded with the county as to each of those properties. So if this road were to be vacated, no property owner would lose access to their home or to their residence. It might create a presumption that they also own part of that road, but they still have that underlying easement. So everybody would still have access to the road. It would just simply mean that whatever interest the county had, if it did have an interest at one time, is now gone. And that would relieve the county of the burden of having to determine whether or not it can provide, whether it can maintain this road. In speaking with the road department, it's just about impossible to maintain. It's very, very difficult to maintain. We would have to, if we were to maintain it, really, it would require putting in ditches. It would require us taking care of drainage because it's a gravel road. Maintaining a Class B gravel road such as this requires that the county maintain the drainage of water, which, according to Daniel Campbell, our road administrator, also means snow plowing. There's simply not room to snow plow or to grade the road or to put in bar ditches on the side without knocking over fences and moving them. So really, if we were to maintain this road and make it a road we could take care of, we would have to most likely institute eminent domain actions to take a portion of each adjoining property owner's property along the way. And we would have to pay them just compensation to do that. And so it would be an extensive action to take for a very, a little used road where the owners already have legal access. So for that reason, it would be my recommendation, and in talking to staff, it's their recommendation also, that you authorize us to begin vacationing of Oliver Lane, especially given the hostility, well, I wouldn't say hostility, but UDOT's adamant opposition to our simply leaving the road in its current state. They're quite adamant that we take some action, either vacate it or begin to maintain it again. And really, maintaining it's going to be very expensive and difficult, and so I would recommend we vacate it.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments, thoughts?
And of course, by voting to initiate that process tonight, this does not vacate that road. This simply sets the process in motion by which I will prepare the documents necessary to announce the public hearing of it. You'll have to have a public hearing. You'll have to pass an ordinance vacating it later on. So this doesn't have to be the final say. If new evidence comes up, if new information comes up to you, you may vote at some point to not vacate this road. You might say, no, we're not going to, because it will be prejudicial to some of the public. So this just simply authorizes that process to get started and all the notice to go out to everybody.
I'll make the motion to approve the process to begin the vacationing of Oliver Lane.
A motion.
And I think it makes perfect sense that if this is something that is being urged upon us by the UDOT, at least to make a decision, that this probably makes the most sense to further it along the process to make sure that it is the right decision. So I'll second the motion to begin the process.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. If you'll go ahead, Christian, and start to schedule that.
I'll do that.
Our next item then is consideration and possible approval of a Title VI plan.
Commissioners, if I can introduce this also, a Title VI plan is something that's required by certain federal programs if you're going to seek grants through certain federal agencies. It's my understanding that one of our departments, the Senior Center, needs some equipment, including a truck, for which they can receive a grant, but they have to show that a Title VI plan is in place. What is a Title VI plan? A Title VI plan is a plan that says how the county will address problems of discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. So we have to be able to show that the county, we have to have a plan that shows if anybody feels they've been discriminated against in trying to deal with the county, obtain documents, obtain information, interacting with the county. Number one, we have to have a way for them to interact with us. And number two, we have to have a complaint procedure. So that would include designating a county Title VI coordinator, who I would recommend be our HR department, meaning Rose Barnes primarily, that she be the person who would receive any complaint with respect to Title VI actions. And then this plan also provides that county agrees not to discriminate in providing services or information to anyone based on their language of origin, their nation of origin, their color. It also provides that we indicate whether there are any groups that are called, that are considered limited English proficiency. So we were asked to identify in this plan whether there are any languages spoken in the county which constitute 5% of the population, or I should say, if there are any languages spoken by people who claim in the census data that they do not speak English well. If that percentage of people for any particular language population claim that they do not speak English well, if they constitute more than 5% of the county's residents, it's suggested that we undertake certain actions such as publishing all of our brochures and official documents in that language, that we have people on site who can translate those documents. Want to let you know that in Carbon County, we have approximately 4.7% of our population who speak Spanish, and over 6% of our population who speak Spanish as one of their main languages. But only out of that 6%, only 1.73% state that they do not speak English proficiently. So we are below that 5% threshold that would suggest that we otherwise publish all of our documents in Spanish and so forth. So this plan identifies the language, the limited English proficiency population in our county. It also indicates that the county does have on staff Spanish speakers who are able and willing to provide translation services in a pinch if needed. It indicates that we will put up some posters indicating how persons can make a complaint if they need to regarding any Title VI violation. So I know Seth has already, Seth Ovison, our county clerk, has in many instances provided translation services to many people who've come into our building. We have one or two other such Spanish speakers here. But this simply indicates we are willing to comply with all federal guidelines regarding that. We will not discriminate, and we'll provide a mechanism for people who are concerned about being discriminated. They can make a complaint which can be formally or informally resolved. So if we have this plan in place, I think it makes it available, it makes possible for us to be able to seek grants which require us to show that we have a Title VI plan in place.
That's an awful lot of hoops to jump through for a for a bus for the senior center.
Yes, it is.
But we're glad that you took care of it, and I'll make the motion to approve the Title VI plan.
I'll second that motion.
One other thing I would add before we call for a vote is that this, once we put this in place and they apply, it sounded like there was quite a wait period of time before those kind of funds come available. Is that correct?
There's a 3-year lag or a 3-year window to be able to receive the bus, so we're looking way in advance. And it's an 80-20 match. The federal government would provide 80% and the county would have to come up with 20% of the match to be able to buy the bus for the senior center. This is the bus that goes out and picks up seniors and drives them to their doctor's appointments.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We need a motion to adjourn, commissioners.
I like that one. I'll make it. Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you.